Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk. I'm Heidi Smith. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator based in the United Kingdom. And today I've created a lovely fold to share with you using the online exclusive Irresistible Blooms. This comes with coordinating dies, you can see here. You can buy the stamp set on its own, or you can buy it with the dies. There's also paper available. Now these aren't in a catalogue, so they are only available in the online exclusives. And the dies you can see here, lots of different variations. So you can die cut it to create an aperture. You can then trim that to create a frame. You've got these lovely lines that you can use as an accent piece, and then these beautiful die cut leaves. And then the dies themselves also cut out these flowers that you can see here as well. So those are all the die, and the leaves as well. So all of these leaves come with a coordinating die. The paper itself, this is the colour palette, and you can see it's 6x6 paper with lovely sort of watercolour effect patterns and florals. And then you've got some sheets where you can use the dies to cut out the leaves. You can see there. And you've got these lovely ones that sort of echo the line die, a lovely trellis, some pretty ones. I mean, that just makes a beautiful background on its own. The flower dies also cut out these 2 pages and 2 colourways of the flowers. So 4 sheets each of 12 different designs is what you're going to get there as well. So really lovely papers. So that's what I'm using. So what are we going to create? I thought we'd create a bit of a variation on an easel and easel card and a gatefold card. So belly band just to hold it together. You open it up and there's that lovely panel, and then you pop it up, and your easel you can see here, and your panel where you can write is actually then hidden as well. So you can see there you don't need to you don't need to display your sentiment, and I've just used the DSP to create panels at the side as well, as you can see here. So that's what we're going to do. I thought I've used the colours that are my favourite. So these are the sort of Flirty Flamingo and Daffodil Delight and a bit of Petal Pink in there. So those are my favourites. So my less favourite colours, and I say less because I still love them, are the kind of greens. So I don't use much in the way of greens, but I thought this time I'd use some Lost Lagoon, one of our returning colours, a bit of Pretty Peacock and a bit of Flirty Flamingo as well, just to kind of create some flowers. So we're going to need to stamp our panel. So we need a piece of card that's 14 by 10 centimetres, which we're going to use for our stamping. And I'm also going to use a scrap of basic white to create the flowers as well, because we want to stamp and die cut some flowers. So I've just got an offcut here of basic white as well. So I've deliberately chosen one that's a bit of a different shape to go with it. I'll go through the measurements as we go along, and as always I'll put the measurements in the description box, which is down here. You'll find a little V, click on that for more, and all the dimensions are in there, or they'll be on my blog as well at some point when I get round to updating it. So let's get started with, so there's my 2 flowers. So I thought if I stamped them in, first of all in some Pretty Peacock, and these are the ones to kind of decorate the inside. So we're going to want 3 different flowers. We're going to want one for the front, a couple for the inside as well. And then we're going to want to stamp our panel here, but I don't want to go quite as dark on that, so I'm actually going to use my Lost Lagoon for those. So I'll give a quick clean up of my stamps when I can find where I put my chamois. So I'm just going to give that a quick clean. What you don't want to do is contaminate your ink pads. So make sure you do give them a good clean in between times. I tend to use my chamois in between stamping, and then I use my stamping scrub at the end of my kind of session. So what I'm going to do here is there's 2 bits of stamping that I want to do. So I want to stamp kind of in the centre of this panel here. and then I'm going to stamp on either side with the smaller one as well, like so. Now I'm going to use my leaf stamp, and I'm probably going to come in with actually some soft sea foam as well on this. So I'm kind of using that palette of greens just to add those in, and use the other little leaf pair as well. Just add that in. Okay. And colour-wise, I'm probably going to come in with a bit of Lost Lagoon and a bit of the Flirty Flamingo to colour these flowers. So what you can do is you can either use a blending brush, so you can come in and just add some colour there. And I'm going to come in with a little bit of Lost Lagoon as well. And I'm just kind of stamping that off because I don't want to sort of dominate. I don't want it to be, my ink pads haven't been used much, so they're quite juicy because they've obviously been sat. And with all Stampin' Up! Ink pads, what happens is if you leave an ink pad sat like that, all the ink will drain. That means that you often end up re-inking when you don't need to. With Stampin' Up! Pads, when you put them away, they are automatically upside down. So that means that if they're sat for a little while, they could be very juicy. So sometimes you need to kind of squish them down with a back of a teaspoon as well. That's a good way of getting rid of any excess ink, rather than trying to blot it. Because if you blot it, you'll end up putting fibres on there as well. So that's just a bit of a hint. So those look a bit messy at the moment, but you know what? It isn't going to matter because we can just die cut those, and it's surprising how quickly die cutting them will change the appearance. And while I'm die cutting, I'm also going to die cut our detailed leaves out of soft sea foam as well, so that's going to kind of tie in that colour palette. So I'll be back in a moment. We are with our die cut flowers, and I've also die cut our leaves, and I used a bit of double-sided adhesive sheet on the back of most of those as well, just to make it easier to adhere them on the inside. Now the next panel that I actually want to create is the panel that's going to create that layer. So what we want is a piece of card. Now my card base I thought I'd use Lost Lagoon for, so I thought I'd actually die cut one from soft sea foam, which is 14 by 9.5, and then I'm going to use this lovely layer in the middle of that. So all I'm going to do is just eyeball it so that the gap on either side is about equal to the one at the top. And I'm going to pop that through my cut and emboss machine. And there we go. So that's something I can just keep that scrap for other die cutting. As you can see, it just pops out really easily with these. They are fantastic. Yeah, the dies really are super easy to use. So I've got this lovely layer here. So this is going to go onto with some DSP behind it. And I thought that actually this trellis effect would look lovely because it's kind of like the trellis behind trellis that you have on the wall in the garden. But what I've done to do is actually stamp some flowers on here as well. So I'm going to again use my Lost Lagoon, which we've already used, so I don't need to clean my ink pad, but I'm just going to stamp some flowers over that, and coming in, and then come in with some leaves as well. And then to add a bit of colour there, I'm going to use my splatter stamp, and I'm going to use my little one as well. So just a bit of tone on tone stamping here. So I'm going to come in with the leaves, just to kind of create your own almost DSP effect here. And I'm going to come in, but stamp off a little bit, and what that does, it kind of just gives a little bit of texture to that piece of card. So this piece is it's just under 9.5 centimetres, and obviously you could make it square. I happen to have a rectangle, which I figured was absolutely fine. And I'm just going to put some adhesive on my card here, and I'm just going to pop some adhesive onto these dots here as well, just to kind of hold it down like so. There we go. And that can then layer over the top of my trellis. You see there, it doesn't matter if it's not straight. And then along with this, you've got these lovely little iridescent loose frosted dots, and these I could do with my take your pick. Just add a little bit of glue to. I'm going to do it this way. So I'm just going to add a little glue around the outside here. I'm leaving this space here free because that's where my flowers are going to go. So now I've found my take your pick. This is where it comes into its own. So what you want to do is pick up some of these lovely assorted dots, and they come in all sorts of colours and different sizes, and just pop some of those around the edge of your card. And the take your pick tool just allows you to pick those up, and what I tend to do is pop them down and then just use my fingertip to get rid to move that. So little one. And what other? So they come in, so they're lovely. So they've kind of got Daffodil Delight, the Pretty Peacock, and the Flirty Flamingo in there as well. So I'm just going to add another colour down here. You won't have seen, but while I was off camera I managed to spill my Pol Pot everywhere, which was not great. There we go. So just see where you've got a couple of little caps, and add those in there. Like so. There we go. So that's ready for us to add our flowers. Putting the lid quickly on these before I knock them over again. I'm going to be finding those for like forever and a day now, aren't I? Now with these, normally I'd pop these up on dimensionals, but because this is the inside of the card, we want to keep it fairly flat. So I'm just going to, although I'm going to shape them, I'm just going to add those in with a little bit of Tombow instead. In fact, I might use this one, which is slightly less smudged. Yeah, put that in there. So I'm just going to put a bit of adhesive on each side, so I'm kind of not sticking it flat in the middle, just a little bit to give it just a hint of kind of shape without being quite as much as a dimensional. And then I can come in and pop these leaves in, and I say because I've put the adhesive sheet on those, I can just pop those in. You might want your pokey tool just to release those. There we go. And again, if you wanted to, instead you could always die cut the leaves out of the DSP as well, just to add a little bit. There we go, that's just going to pop in there. So we've got a flower left for the front and some leaves as well, so I can pop that to one side. Let's clear the decks a little bit, and then we can get on with constructing the next part of our card. but I'll go through. So our card base itself is 14.5 by 21.3, and you're going to come along on this and you're going to score at 5.2 and 5.4. And that's just to, and you're going to do that on both sides, and that's just to give it a bit of extra depth so that you've got enough to wrap around that inner layer. So that's our base. Next, you're going to want a piece of card that is 15.5 by 10 centimetres, and that is simply going to be scored at 1 centimetre. You're going to score that at 7 centimetres. So you could score at 7 and 14.5 just to make it easier. So I've done 7 and then 14.5. That's going to be your easel. You then want a piece of card that is 14.5 by 10. And then the other pieces you're going to want are, you're going to want some layering panels. So I've used some Pretty Peacock here. And those are 4.7 by 14, and you want 4 of those, 2 for the front and 2 for the inside. You then want some DSP to layer onto those, and these are 4.2 by 13.5. So I've got 2, and I've chosen just some of those lovely leaf images as well. So 4.2 by 13.5 on both of those. Then you want a belly band that is 27 by 3 centimetres, and then we can start putting together the rest of our card. So what we need to do then is get these layers done first of all. First things first, we're going to add our layers of DSP to those 4 panels, just so that those can be drying before we start moving them. I've done it before now where they've still been a little wet and I've ended up with squiffy layers. So I'm just adding a bit of Tombow around there, whatever your preferred adhesive is, and just layer those. So these are slightly narrower layers of DSP, and then that also means I can just decide which ones are going to go where on my card as well. The last one. I guess this one just is a little, perhaps a little more masculine, maybe. Great for a gardener with these kind of greens as well. Okay. So, as I said, next thing we want to do is want to create our outer. So I'm just going to fold and reinforce those score lines. So we've got the really narrow ones, and just squeeze those together. So just kind of ease them together and then sort of pull a little bit, just so you get that sort of just little bit of a border. You can see there, it's just this, they are close together, and you're just going to, you're almost kind of, you know, just creating a little bit more of a gap, so that you've got a little bit, you see there, it's just a bit deeper than a single score line. This piece of card that we created, we're going to reinforce that middle score line and that short one, and then just trim the outer edges of that, and you're going to stick that to the top of the card. So just put a bit of adhesive or some really strong Stampin' Seal Plus instead, and just pop that in the middle of that back panel. Like so. And just make sure it lines up at the bottom and give it a good press down. If you've got a little bit that comes out from the inside, don't worry about it, because that is where our inner layer is going to go. So we can then add that on. And you'll see, you just don't see that join across there. And then we need to I need to decide which panel I'm going to put where. So I think I might put those on the inside. Oh, those on the outside. Yes, I'll put these on the outside, I think. So the darker ones on the outside, then there's lighter ones on the inside. So again, just layer those on to the front there. Then you can add your inner one. Like so. As you can see, it's starting to come together now. Just make sure those are in place when we open it up. Now the next thing is to add our inner panel. And what we want to do is layer it onto our Lost Lagoon. I might even add an extra flower on that one. So that's going to go onto that panel there. And then we're going to glue that, but just on this lower section. So what I would say here is add your adhesive to the panel with the fold, then take our next layer and you're going to line it up with the bottom of that. You should find that's nice and square. There we go. And all that remains is for us to do our belly band and to do our easel. So I've just got some scraps of card and I'm just going to use some of those just to create a little panel across. So I didn't actually measure this one, so I'll quickly have to measure it now. So I reckon it's probably, let's have a look, about 1.5 centimetres. Yeah, just under 2 centimetres, and then the centre one is 1.2. So I'm going to go for a bit of this card. So it's going to need to be 10 centimetres across. So we'll go for 10 centimetres. And I'll go for 2, just under. Actually, I'll go a little bit. Yeah, 1.8. Yeah. Then I'll grab a small bit of some Pretty Peacock. So let's go for about 1.4 by 10. So we're going to get a nice layer on there, and then just grab a scrap of whatever DSP you happen to have. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a strip of just under 1 centimetre from the same DSP that I've used for my layer. So that was, yeah, about 1 centimetre. Here we go. And all I'm going to do is now layer those up with a little adhesive and then pop some dimensionals on the back. So we just add the layer. But I made that the same width, so that's no good. Okay, let's just do it as just do DSP then. Best laid plans and all that. That's why I usually have the measurements written down in front of me, otherwise it just doesn't work. There we go. Don't need an extra layer, to be honest with you, with that one actually. And then just pop that wherever you, it's kind of pleasing to the eye. Now this is one place where I do use the edge strips of my dimensionals, because those are just going to fit really well across the middle there. So all I'm going to do is just trim that little strip and add that to the reverse of my little step and pop that across, making sure it's lined up in the middle. So there's our card. With our belly band, what I'm going to do is I'm actually not going to score it so much as roughly have it in the middle and bring those pieces round to the centre, just lining them up as you go and just gently attach those. So you don't want anything too, I've got some Seal Plus here. So I'm just going to add some Seal Plus onto the one end. Don't do it too tight, but overlap it. And then I'm going to cut a piece of DSP and a layer of card to go over that as well. So you'll want a piece that's probably going to be about 10, just over 10.5 or just under 10.5 centimetres. So probably about sort of 10.3 by 2.5. So there's my 2.5 by 10.3, and then a piece that's about 2 centimetres or just over by about 10 centimetres. So again, it's just adding a bit more interest onto the front there. I happen to have my Seal Plus in front of me. Little narrow border. Because this is going over a join, I've used the Seal Plus because I really want to make sure that that fits well. And where that join is, we're just going to add a flower. So depending on your join, you can add a larger or a smaller flower. I'm going to use one of my larger ones here, dimensional in the middle, like so, and then add another couple of our leaves that have got a double-sided tape on the back. Double-sided tape, adhesive sheet. Dear me. There we go. Like so. And then if you've got one, as I have here, which doesn't have adhesive sheet, that means that you can just add a bit of adhesive to the base of it, like so, and then pop it underneath so that it just hangs off the edge, because you don't want the adhesive there because otherwise it's going to stick. So there we have our Gatefold Easel card using Hello Irresistible, and we've got the bright and cheery Pretty in Pinks and Petal Pink, and then we've got the kind of lovely greens as well. Which do you prefer? Do you have a preference? Let me know, and come back and see me again soon. And as I said, all the measurements in both inches, US cardstock size and centimetres are in the description box below this video. Please do like, subscribe, it really makes a difference to me, and come back and see me again soon. Bye now.